So this will be another movie review. This one's called 7 Days in May. This is going to be another Red Scare film. Giving it 1 out of 5 stars. I hated this flick. This is a completely idiotic political propaganda film from the likes of John Frankenheimer and Rod Serling. I'm going to say John Frankenheimer is now an officially a hit or miss director. My favorite movie of all times is Seconds, which has a bunch of blacklisted actors in it. Not coincidentally. But The Manchurian Candidate wasn't that great. I thought it was overrated. This one stinks heaven high. The astonishing story of an astounding military plot to take over the United States. This time, the time is 1970 or 1980 or possibly tomorrow. From the shattering bestseller, An Eternity of Suspense. I thought it was an eternity of boredom and stupidity. Burt, Lancaster, Kirk, Douglas, Frederick March, don't know who he is. Ava Gardner. All right. That's the movie poster. 1964 U.S. political thriller film about a military political cabal's planned takeover of the U.S. government in reaction to the president's negotiation of a disarmament treaty with the Soviet Union. The film, starring Burt, Lancaster, Kirk Douglas, Frederick March, and Ava Gardner, was directed by John Frankenheimer from a screenplay written by Rod Serling and based on the novel of the same name by Fletcher Nebel and Charles W. Bailey II, published in September 1962. The book was written in late 1961 and into early 1962 during the first year of the John F. Kennedy administration, reflecting some of the events of that era. In November 1961, President John F. Kennedy accepted the resignation of vociferously anti-communist General Edwin Walker, who had been indoctrinating the troops under his command with radical right-wing ideas and personal political opinions, including describing Harry S. Truman, Dean Acheson, Eleanor Roosevelt, and other public figures as communist sympathizers. Sounds like my kind of guy. Although no longer in uniform, Walker continued to make headlines as he ran for governor of Texas, and he made speeches promoting strongly right-wing views. In the film version of 7 Days in May, Frederick March, portraying the narrative's fictional president, Jordan Lyman, mentions General Walker as one of the false prophets who were offering themselves to public as leaders. The other one was Senator Joe McCarthy. And that irritated me. As Fletcher Nebel and Charles W. Bailey II, primarily political journalists and columnists, collaborated on the novel, they also conducted interviews with another highly controversial military commander, the newly appointed Air Force Chief of Staff General Curtis LeMay, who was angry with Kennedy for refusing to provide air support for the Cuban rebels in the Bay of Pigs invasion. The character of General James Mattoon Scott was believed to have been inspired by both LeMay and Walker. I'm not liking this Curtis LeMay guy, though. President Kennedy had read the novel 7 Days in May shortly after its publication, and he believed that the scenario could actually occur in the United States. It's hard to imagine, but okay. According to director John Frankenheimer, the project received encouragement and assistance from Kennedy through White House Press Secretary Pierre Salinger, who conveyed to Frankenheimer Kennedy's wish that the film be produced. In spite of Defense Department opposition, Kennedy arranged to visit the Kennedy compound in Hyannisport for a weekend when the film needed to shoot outside the White House. Okay. In the 1970s, the Cold War remained a major security and political problem. Right there is the main issue that I have with this movie. During the 70s, they got it all wrong. During the 70s, the U.S. was giving foreign aid to the Soviet Union. That's what it should say. U.S. President Jordan Lyman recently signs a nuclear disarmament treaty with the Soviet Union, and the subsequent ratification by the U.S. Senate has produced a wave of dissatisfaction, especially among Lyman's political opposition and the military, who believe that the Russians cannot be trusted. His popularity has reached an all-time low of 29%. That is pretty low. I think that's lower than Joe Biden. There is rioting about the treaty right outside the White House, and he is warned of a dangerous cardiac condition by the presidential physician, which he blithely disregards. Too busy and beleaguered to take a prescribed 2-week vacation, United States Marine Corps Colonel Jiggs Casey, played by Kirk Douglas. He is the director of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He serves as chairman, 4-star United States Air Force General James Mattoon Scott, played by Burt Lancaster, a former air ace who earned 6 Purple Hearts, 2 Distinguished Service Crosses, and the Medal of Honor. Casey stumbles upon evidence that Scott is leading the Joint Chiefs to stage a coup d'etat to remove Lyman in 7 days. Under the plan, disguised as a training exercise, a secret army unit known as ECOMCOM, training at a secret Texas base, will take control of the country's telephone, radio, and television networks while the president, participating in a stage alert, is seized. Scott, who is busy advancing his charismatic public persona through nationally televised anti-treaty rallies, is planned to head a military junta. I thought that only happened in South America. But I guess it happens here in the minds of Frankenheimer and Rod Serling. Although personally opposed to Lyman's policies, Casey is appalled by the plot and he alerts Lyman. Still somewhat skeptical, Lyman gathers a circle of trusted advisors to investigate. Secret Service White House detail Art Cohen, Treasury Secretary Christopher Todd, longtime advisor Paul Gerard, and Raymond Clark, the senior U.S. Senator from Georgia and a close friend of 21 years. Casey has decided that the heads of all branches of the U.S. military, but the Navy support. Casey has deduced that the heads of all branches of the U.S. military, but the Navy support Scott's coup scheme with Vice Admiral Barneswell, then aboard an aircraft carrier in the Mediterranean. Apparently, the only invited officer to decline, Lyman cancels a previous commitment to participate in Scott's alert offering the ruse that he will be away for a fishing weekend. He then dispatches Gerard to Gibraltar to obtain Barneswell's confessions. He sends the alcoholic Clark to Texas to locate the secret base, and he takes Casey to gather dirt on the general's private life. Meanwhile, the Secret Service surreptitiously films evidence of an attempt to kidnap the president during the phony fishing trip, removing all doubts about the existence of a plot. Gerard successfully secures Barnwell's confession in writing, but disappears during a plane crash in Spain. Clark is taken captive when he reaches the secret base, and he's held incommunicado for a day and a half before the Sunday coup, exploiting Casey's longtime friendship with the base's deputy commander, Colonel Henderson. Clark convinces Henderson of the actual intent of the impending alert. Henderson frees Clark, and he leads an escape back to Washington, but he is abducted and confined in a military stockade there. In a radio phone conference call with the president, Barneswell denies knowledge of any conspiracy. Knowing that he cannot prove Scott's guilt, Lyman nevertheless calls Scott to the White House to demand that he and the other conspirators resign. Scott refuses, and he denies the existence of any plot. Lyman argues that a coup would prompt the Soviets to launch a preemptive nuclear strike. Scott maintains that the American people are behind him. Lyman challenges him to resign and to run for office in order to seek power legitimately through the democratic process. We love democracy in the United States. Well, not really. I don't. But Scott is unmoved. Lyman restrains himself from confronting Scott with the damning letters that Casey had obtained. Scott meets the other three joint chiefs, and he reasserts his intention to execute the coup. He plans a nighttime network broadcast, but Lyman holds an afternoon press conference to announce that he has hired the four men. He has fired the four men. Not hired, fired. He's announcing that he's fired the four men as he's speaking. Barneswell's confession, recovered from the plane crash, is handed to him, and he delays the conference. In the interim, copies of the confession are delivered to Scott and the other plotters. As the press conference resumes, Scott abandons the plan when Lyman announces that the other three conspirators have resigned. Kirk Douglas and director John Frankenheimer were the moving forces behind the filming of 7 Days in May. The film was produced by Edward Lewis through Douglas's company, Joe Productions, and Seven Arts Productions. Frankenheimer recruited screenwriter Rod Serling. Douglas intended to star in the film along with his frequent co-star, Burt Lancaster. Douglas offered Lancaster the General Scott role, while Douglas agreed to play Scott's assistant. Frankenheimer commissioned Nedrick Young to rewrite the scene in which Casey visits Holbrook at her apartment. Lancaster's involvement nearly caused Frankenheimer to withdraw from the project, as the two men had conflicted during the production of Birdman of Alcatraz 2 years earlier, which I haven't not seen. Only Douglas's assurances that Lancaster would behave kept Frankenheimer on the project. Lancaster and Frankenheimer were at peace during the filming, but Douglas and Frankenheimer sparred with one another. Frankenheimer was very happy with Lancaster's performance, especially the long scene toward the end between Lancaster and March. Saying that Lancaster was perfect in his delivery, Frankenheimer stated decades later that he considered 7 Days in May among his most satisfying work. I find it among his most dissatisfying work. He saw the film as putting a nail in the coffin of Joe McCarthy. Boo. The filming took 51 days, and according to the director, the production, it was a happy affair with all the actors and crew displaying great reverence for Frederick March. Many of Lancaster's scenes were shot at a later time as he was recovering from hepatitis. Ava Gardner, whose scenes were shot in just 6 days, thought that Frankenheimer favored the other actors over her. Frankenheimer remarked that she was sometimes difficult. Martin Balsam objected to Frankenheimer's habit of shooting pistols behind him during important scenes. Frankenheimer had been briefly stationed in the mailroom at the Pentagon early in his Korean War service, and he stated that the sets were totally authentic, praising the production designer, further providing authenticity. Many of the scenes in the film were loosely based on real-life events of the Cold War. I find that hard to believe. In an early example of guerrilla filmmaking, Frankenheimer photographed Balsam ferrying to the super carrier USS Kitty Hawk in San Diego without prior permission. Another example occurred when Frankenheimer wanted a shot of Douglas entering the Pentagon, but unable to receive permission, he rigged a camera in a parked car. Frankenheimer recruited well-known producer and friend John Houseman to play Vice Admiral Harley C. Barnwell in his uncredited acting debut. Houseman agreed in return for a fine bottle of wine seen during the telephone scene. Several scenes, including one with stand-ins for nuns, were shot inside the recently built Washington Dulles International Airport. I've been to that airport. And the production team was the first to ever film there. I think I went there in 1980. The alley and car park scene were shot in Hollywood, and other footage was shot in the California desert in 110-degree heat. The secret base and airstrip were especially built in the desert near Indio, California, and the aircraft tail was used in one shot to create the illusion of a whole plane off screen. The original script had Lancaster dying in a car crash at the end after hitting a bus, but this was dropped in favor of a scene showing him leaving for home in his limousine, a scene that was shot in Paris during production of The Train, 1964. Presidential press secretary Pierre Salinger conveyed to Frankenheimer that President Kennedy had read the book and he hoped that the film would be produced. Kennedy arranged a visit to the family compound in Hyannisport one weekend so that the riot scene could be filmed outside the White House. Frankenheimer considered the scene in which Douglas's character visits the president to be a masterful bit of acting, which would have been very difficult for most actors to sustain. He had done similar scenes on many television shows, and not only the acting, but also every camera angle and shot were extensively planned and rehearsed. Frankenheimer paid particular attention to ensuring that all three actors in the scene were in focus for dramatic impact. Many of Frankenheimer's signature techniques were used in scenes such as this throughout the film, including his depth of focus shot with one or two people near the camera and others in the distance, and the low angle wide lens set of f11, which he considered to give tremendous impact on a scene. The film is set in 1970, several years in the future from the time of its release. The most obvious efforts are apparent of the year itself, including on a Pentagon display and a registration sticker on the rear license plate of Senator Prentice Bentley's sedan. Other nods include a situation room which was designed to seem futuristic, as well as the utilization of then futuristic technology of video teleconferencing and the recently issued and exotic-looking M16 rifle. Additionally, the concept of a nuclear treaty between Cold War powers anticipated the actual existence of one. Okay, so that part was accurate. I'll give them credit for something. David Amram, who previously scored Frankenheimer's the Manchurian Candidate, 1962, originally provided music for the film, but Lewis was unsatisfied with his work. Jerry Goldsmith, who had worked with producer and Douglas on Lonely Are the Brave, also in 1962, and The List of Adrian Messenger, 1963, was signed to rescore the project. Goldsmith composed a very brief score, lasting around 15 minutes, using only pianos and percussion. He later scored Seconds and The Challenge. Seconds, 1966, and The Challenge, 1982, for Frankenheimer. In 2013, Entrada Records released Goldsmith's music for the film on a limited edition CD paired with Maurice Jarre's score for The Macintosh Man. Although that film was produced by Warner Brothers, while 7 Days in May was theatrically released by Paramount. The entire Seven Arts Productions library had been acquired by Warner Brothers back in 1967. 7 Days in May premiered on February 12th, 1964 in Washington, D.C., to good critical notices and audience response. The film was nominated for 2 1965 Academy Awards for Edmond O'Brien for Best Actor in a Supporting Role, and for Best Art Direction Set, Decoration Black and White, for Carrie O'Dell and Edward G. Boyle. In that year's Golden Globes Awards, O'Brien won for Best Supporting Actor, and Frederick Marsh, John Frankenheimer, and composer Jerry Goldsmith received nominations. Frankenheimer won a Danish Bodil Award for directing the Best Non-European Film, and Rod Serling was nominated for a Writers Guild of America Award for Best Written American U.S. Drama. Okay. The film was remade in 1994 by HBO as The Enemy Within, with Sam Waterston and President William Foster, Jason Robards as General R. Pendleton Lloyd, and Forrest Whitaker as Colonel Mackenzie Mac Casey. This version followed many parts of the original plot closely while updating it for the post-Cold War world, omitting certain incidents and changing the ending. Ooh, I don't want to see that movie. All right. Nobody's in the chat room. It's too early for Karate Man. Let me show you my other discs. I've got Dino Shark here. There's Dino Shark. Not looking forward to that. Then I've got a double feature. I don't know if I can get through all these. This is Cry Baby Killer and Little Shop of Horrors. It's called Back to Back Jack Edition. Back to Back Jack Edition. 2 Jack Nicholson, Roger Corman movies. All right. I go through my list, but then my video is going to be over 30 minutes. I think I'll wait until after Dino Shark review to go down my list. I added another one. Another director wants me to, or some dude wants me to review his film. Some dude from LinkedIn. I forget his name. Maybe I can find it. Pull up my Gmail and my Netflix. Oh, I finally got my my wife's child support check. It's not much. I've got got a couple big checks floating around, a $1,500 check to Uncle Sam for my quarterly income tax and Social Security. Then I've got an $804 check floating around for my health insurance that my former employer used to subsidize, but now I'm paying it 100% for at least 6 months because my new prospective employer is making me wait 6 months for health benefits, which is a real stinker, but it's still 1 month less, or about the same time as my other employers offering of health insurance after 12 months. They make me wait 12 months. So, anyways, got this email on LinkedIn. I'll pull it up for you. I'm trying to pull up my Netflix, but it's not coming up. My son isn't feeling well. I offered him supplements and Dayquil. He didn't want to take it. So he's been sniffling and blowing snot all morning long. I offered to help him. I did my duty. But he's 13. He likes to do it his way now. All right. So the next 3 discs coming next week are Atlas 1961. Another Roger Corman, Jack Nicholson, no, just a Roger Corman. I've got the Fearmakers Collection, Disc 1 and Disc 2. Oh, that's a 2007 straight to video. Half-hour profiles of 10 of the screen's masters of classic terror and suspense, based on the book The Fearmakers, St. Martin's Press, 1994, by John McCarthy. All right. So I got this email from Alan Sepos. Please watch Honor Tuchel's recent film. Hi, I can't make this more personal than to tell you how important you are in our industry, how hard it is to get a film made and then seen by the public. It is so important to us to get reviews on the film, good, bad, or indifferent, so that we can get it seen. Oh, sort of like a See Jane Run review. Our film has been at a number of festivals, and we've won so far over 15 awards for Best Film, Best Actor. Alan Sepos, Max Casella, and Frank Rahiorsony, best editing, best cinematography. But still, we can't really get it out there. Please help and spend 90 minutes to watch and review it. Thank you so much. Our industry is big, yet we are a community. Thanks, Alan. P.S. Oh, I'm not supposed to talk about that part. All right. So Sepos, the actor. For Onur Tekel. Recent film. I don't know what the film is because I haven't watched the screener, but it's at the bottom of my list. I'm guessing it might be the third Saturday in October. I'm not sure what the name of the film is. Might be a new film because that one's from last year. Anyway, I'm up over 30 minutes. Hopefully I can get 5 overnights and 4 independent contractor routes next week. I'm working at a new hotel, Axiom Hotel, which is in the worst part of San Francisco. I'll probably upload a video from the hotel on Wednesday morning. But I don't know where the office is where I can watch videos and do my movie reviews. So, but it's kind of funny that I interviewed at that hotel before the neighborhood turned into a complete and utter ghetto area with human poo and pee all over the street. People dropping their pants right in front of you, bending over. That's San Francisco downtown area. It's the stinkiest, smelliest part of San Francisco. The worst part of San Francisco is where I'm working right now. Hopefully I can go back to the nicer hotel, the Luma Hotel, after they realize that their guests are complaining that I'm no longer there. So, anyways, it's nice to see all 3 of my my fans posting comments. Professor Quiz, I think all 3 of them posted on my last video. It was Professor Quiz, Karate Man, and last but not least, Mr. Adrian, talking about Dr. Phibes Rises Again, which is a movie that I love. If you look at the trailer, maybe the trailer looks better than the movie, but still, I love that movie. Can't get enough of it. I'd watch it over and over again. Both Dr. Phibes movies. I don't know why. Adrian said he didn't like it because Robert Quarry doesn't play a vampire. Well, it's a Dr. Phibes movie. I've never seen a vampire in the Dr. Phibes movie. I think Dr. Phibes is more like a zombie dude. He came back from the dead, and he's piecing together his ears and his face. All right. Well, that's the end of my review. Now I'm up over 34 minutes later.